May 5th, 1862 was a bad day for Williamsburg. The Williamsburg line had been put up to block the Federals from coming from Fortress Monroe and attacking Richmond from that location. But on May 5th, the Battle of Williamsburg took place. The Confederates had to retreat out of here, but the town seemed to be spared at the moment. Fast forward to September, the Federals came in and burned down some of the buildings, and from that point forward, this area was actually in the hands of the Federal soldiers for the rest of the war. Now, not too long ago, the location that I'm at was kind of fenced off. You couldn't get to it because they were doing work out here to try to build bridges and things to get over top one of the redoubts so you could get inside and see it from a different perspective. But today the work is pretty much complete and you can come out here and check it out for yourself. Hopefully you're able to see what I'm looking at right here. But this is all part of the defense works that are here. And just on the other side of that defense work is a road that was called Quarter Path Road. And that particular road was behind these defense works for a reason. It was supposed to be a sort of a route to get to the river in case the Confederates needed to make their way down there. It ended up saving the Confederate cavalry before too long, because after the retreat, Stuart actually got disconnected with the Confederate army, and he rode along the beach at the James River and came across this Quarter Path Road and ended up coming up this way through this road. Now the defenses, like the ones directly behind me here, Redoubt number 1, stretched all throughout the Williamsburg area. Redoubt number 1 through 18 was actually out here, with Redoubt number 6 being Fort Magruder. This was pretty strong defenses here in Williamsburg to stop the Federals from making their way up to Richmond. They were only held for a short period of time before the Federals came pressing up through this way. Eventually, the Confederates would give up the defense works here, and they would make their way out to Richmond. And Johnson would be the commanding general in charge and would start the fights out there at Seven Pines and continue the work until Robert E. Lee became the commanding general, and you have the 7 days battles, which leads to McClellan making his way back up that same river that he took and going back the way he came. Now, this really is a nice park out here. It's tucked away. There's a Fort Magruder Hotel. A lot of people mistake that for Fort Magruder. It is not Fort Magruder. Fort Magruder is actually a little ways down the road past Bloody Ravine. If you want to find your way out here, you can go to the Civil War Trails interactive map and you can look up the sign Bloody Ravine. Go right past Bloody Ravine. The hotel will be on the left-hand side. And that very next road, right past there, you will make your way over to this park. There is no interactive sign map for this place. There are lots of Civil War Trail signs out here, but the signs are not on the map. Out here in Williamsburg, you're not really going to get a good perspective of the battlefield, or a real good view of it in totality, because the battlefield's kind of all over. There's lots of signs. The Civil War trails markers are probably the best perspective you can get. But when you come out to a place like this, Redoubt Park, this is going to give you the best perspective. There's lots of walking and climbing to do out here. This is about a half a mile the trail is, and there's little streams that run through here when it rains. The hills are pretty tall. The view is beautiful once you get past the road itself. But the signs really paint the picture of what this place was all about, and really gives you the grand perspective of how large of a battle the Battle of Williamsburg really was. This was not a small skirmish. This was a massive fight. And you have to understand, in this location out here, the Confederates were on the heels, and it was at the very beginning of the war, realistically. They were trying to protect the capital, and during that part of the Civil War, a lot of the emphasis was on capture the capital, control their government, shut down their army. It wasn't until later in the war, when Grant took over, that the emphasis began to be capture the army, forget the capital. The capital's not that important. And that was much later in the fight. So I encourage you, if you get the chance to come out to Williamsburg, stop by Redoubt Park. It'll give you a whole new perspective on the Battle of Williamsburg. And what we're looking at behind me here is Redoubt number 2. Now, somewhere off in this direction here, going from this direction to this direction, General Hooker brought his men up. He was crossing plowed fields and dense woods, and in some places, a colonel wouldn't be able to see their men from end to end, so they had to rely on positioning and flags and just sheer will and determination to get to where they were supposed to. That day, there was a cold drizzle coming out of the sky, even though it was May 5th of 1862. And the men reached up to close to where Fort Magruder was, and they were fighting in this direction. Eventually, they made their way and were stopped short of what their goal for the progress was. These defense works did their job. They prevented the army from completely overrunning the Confederates and protected the town of Williamsburg and protected the rear guard of the Confederate army. The Confederates, knowing that the end was near here in Williamsburg, eventually Johnson had to move his men out, and he took them out towards Richmond. And as a result, you had Jeb Stuart riding around trying to find the other side where the cavalry was, and they ended up getting separated from the Confederate army. That paints the picture of Jeb Stuart and his cavalrymen out on the beaches of the James River, tiptoeing around with horses, trying to make his way back towards the Confederate army. And he comes up through that road that we mentioned earlier in the video. It's a pretty unique situation, and a lot of the biggest names from that war fought right here in Williamsburg at these defense works that we're at today. And this is all history that's tucked away in the middle of nowhere. And a lot of people really don't come out here to check this out. That's why it's called Drive-By History. This has truly been an amazing stop to come out and check this out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I brought something to you that maybe you haven't seen, maybe you've heard about. And if you get the chance to come out here and stop, take that time to stop and see it. Don't drive by. This has been another episode of Drive By History from History with Waffles. Until next time.